2002 Fall Camp. Friday, August 2nd, 2002. The last couple of nights leading up to today have been nothing but partying and celebration, and also dreading the start of two-a-days. This included last night, which might explain why I missed the short morning meeting at 9:30, arriving 15 minutes later, just in time for the body tests. I had my height and weight checked at 6'5" and 288 pounds, passed the blood pressure and eye test, and then had to drink a lot of water for the urine test. The new thing we did this year was to finally use the bod pod for the body fat test. Instead of the calipers, this is a big white bubble that looks like an escape pod from a space movie. I'm not sure how it measures body fat, but it said I have 25% body fat, which is ridiculous. I never believe what those tests tell me anyway, so I don't care. We then had lunch and relaxed before our next session of meetings. At 2 o'clock, the chief of the University Police talked to us about common sense stuff like what to do if we get pulled over, what to watch out for at parties, and how to act in public. We finally have a new nutritionist, James Harris, after nearly 2 years without one. James has been around here for a while, so he should be a good fit. We also have a new head equipment guy, Jay Terry, who told us about the new system they are introducing. There's a barcode for each one of us, and they have gear barcoded as well. That way, they know exactly what we have and what we still need. Our guest speaker for the evening was Don McPherson, former college football star from Syracuse, Heisman Trophy runner-up, and pro player. He spoke to us last year as well, and once again did a great job of getting his point across. He talked about how we need to treat women with respect, and how we need to treat each other with respect as well, and not try to live up to some lofty cultural standard, but instead, just be a good person. He talked for a long time, and it was very good. I picked up $70 at dinner as the first installment of the money we'll get. In accordance with the new NCAA regulation, we had to count all the money when we received it and sign off that we were given the right amount. After dinner, we had yet another meeting where we filled out all the NCAA paperwork. Coach Solich reiterated that there is to be no hazing this year. This may be the end of paying rent for now, but I am sure it will be back one day. Sean Marceleno from an investment firm here in town talked to us about how to handle our money better and what we should think about doing when we leave college and start working or go pro. Once again, common sense, but it was still needed for some guys. I received a lot of new gear today. For starters, I was issued a new pair of red and white basketball shoes, which are very ugly and will probably never be worn. I also received a new pair of molded cleats and turf shoes. On top of that, we received a gray t-shirt, black shorts, a black Adidas spandex sleeveless top, Under Armour boxers, 3 pairs of socks, and a new pair of padded gloves. Saturday, August 3rd, 2002. Today was the first official day of two-a-day practices, although we really only had one practice. We met in the Cook Pavilion at 8:30 to do our athletic testing. I breezed through mine quickly, and my goal was to better one of my times to avoid doing the 300-yard shuttle run. I beat my old pro agility score by a mere .05 seconds, but that was all I needed. At the 10 o'clock meetings, we just watched some old film of the plays that we will be introducing today. Then we had lunch and I went home to take a nap, and was back for more meetings and practice. We had another meeting after practice, and then went to dinner at 8 o'clock. Basically, it was a full day of football, which will be our lives for the next 2 weeks. The practice today was pretty good, considering it was the first day. It took a while to adjust to little things, like the snap counts, which were recently changed slightly to throw off the defense. This is a small thing, but we're also used to doing it a certain way that it was a problem for the first few minutes. We really hit the ground running today, and it seems as though none of us have been gone for the game very long. Practice was very fast-paced, with 3 10-minute stations at the end. We didn't have that many plays to choose from, but I hope this quickness keeps up for the remainder of the practices. I was long snapping with John Garrison and Richie Incognito before practice, and I thought I was doing really well. If I do anything this year at all, I would like to be the starting long snapper for punts and extra points. I know John and Richie don't want to do them, since both of them will be starting, and this would guarantee me an athletic letter if I can actually do it. I hope so. Sunday, August 4th, 2002. This morning's practice started off really well. It felt good to be in shoulder pads for the first time since the spring game, and felt like I was moving well. We did some punt work today, and I really did well with that too. I'm still not sure if I will beat out Garrison for the job on the punt team. Our place kicker, Josh Brown, thinks Garrison will keep this job for the year because it will be his ticket to the NFL. That may be true, but he already has a good enough track record for scouts to look at, and he doesn't really need to do it this year. After practice, we did some PAT work, and this went very well too. Quarterback Joe Chrisman, who will be the holder for the field goal team, said all of my snaps were right on target and he didn't have to spin them at all. The afternoon practice was on grass in sweats, but it was still really hot. The new freshmen are really doing well overall. Jamale Phillips from Winfield, Louisiana, has joined us in the offensive line and really stands out, mostly because of his size. He's 6'7" and 335 pounds with size 18 feet and has so far been very quiet but very attentive. Coach Tenneper has reminded him to be physical and not just walk through plays. On film, he moved fairly well and made some good blocks. After practice, Jamale was one of a few guys, including Richie Incognito, who cramped up so badly that they needed IVs of sodium chloride. Jamale sat through most of the meeting in Coach Tenneper's office with the IV in his arm and Dr. Albers holding the IV bag for him. Monday, August 5th, 2002. Today's set of practices went pretty well. This morning was in full pads and it was overcast with clouds that looked ready to give us more rain, but the skies cleared midway through practice. It was a cool morning, which made practice much more bearable. I was running with the number ones, mainly giving John Garrison a one-play break for every 3 plays he took. This put me in a position to get very little attention from the coaches, since I have fewer plays to show them what I could do. But for 2-a-days, it's fine, because I'm not getting as worn out as the other guys. I knew when I came here 4 years ago that I would have to mature and develop a lot to see much playing time. Now in my senior year, I think I'm a pretty good athlete, which must be true if I'm at a program such as Nebraska, but I'm not the caliber athlete who can make a difference on the offensive line here. That doesn't bother me because I've never planned to make my living as an athlete, and I also believe that there are other sports I can excel in or at least just have fun in. Overall, I think the defense will surprise a lot of skeptics this year. They're playing very good all around at every position, and they have great depth all over. The defensive line is stacked with big, fast, talented guys who are hungry for the ball. The linebackers are unbelievably fast and hard-hitting. The rush ends are playing out of their minds and always in on every play, while the defensive backs continually pick off passes or at least make spectacular breakups. I can't wait to see them in action in a game, mostly because I'm sick of them making us look bad. I would be surprised if we play a team this year that has as good of a defense as we do. After dinner, a bunch of us older linemen went to Bryan LGH Hospital to see Tim Green, who just had back surgery. He looked good and said he has no pain in his back at all, but he's still on a lot of medication. He was already walking around after early morning surgery. Coach Solich stopped by to see how he was doing and to wish him good luck. Today will be repeated for the next 4 days with 7:30 and 3 o'clock practices, and 1:30 and 6 o'clock meetings. At night, I usually get home from dinner, relax a little, type this journal, and then go to bed before 10 o'clock if I can. Tuesday, August 6th, 2002. This morning was in half pads again. I think a lot of guys are getting worn out physically and mentally. There have been a few little fights here and there, mostly by guys getting beaten on a play and then fighting out the frustration. Nate Coulterman has been one of the guys who had to run stairs for fighting both yesterday and today, which is no surprise to anyone. For the afternoon practice, we just had a special teams session. We worked on kickoff and kickoff return, punt and punt return, and PAT and field goal block. While most of that was going on, the O-line just walked through plays on the side, with younger guys getting all the reps so they can learn a little more. The young guys need a lot of work on the plays, but they are coming along as well as any group of the past couple of years. Jamale could be a starter by next year if he would just get his plays down and show a little tenacity on the field. I think Coach Tenneper would have another All-American on his hands with Kurt Mann as well. At the 6 o'clock meetings, Coach Tenneper and Coach Young drew up formations on the board and called on us individually to draw up what everyone else had to do on certain plays. I got called up for a 43-tackle trap, and I know what the guards and centers do, but I didn't have a clue what the tackles do. The other guys had to help me out, but even some of them didn't know what to do, so I didn't feel so bad. As I left the board, Coach Tenneper told me as a joke to not become a coach. This hurt since I'm working on getting a coaching endorsement on top of my teaching degree. I picked up another $60 at dinner tonight. Wednesday, August 7th, 2002. Jamal Lord is really throwing well. He has been throwing darts right to the chest of the receivers while he's on the run, and even thrown some perfect lob passes that slip right over the hands of the defensive backs and straight into the arms of the receiver. If he keeps this up, we will see something that hasn't been seen at Nebraska in a long time, a quarterback who can actually throw the ball well. I hope he can. It would really help our all-around game if we could back up the run with the threat of a pass. Thursday, August 8th, 2002. When everyone came in last weekend, it seemed like we were mentally ready for the season. We worked out together all summer. We've been through the rougher past seasons, and we all know how close we came to winning it all last year and not finishing it off in the end. Because of this bond, I think this team has the best chemistry I've seen in 5 years. Everyone is looking forward to the season, and I think all of us have the right mindset to do well. We will just have to prove it to everyone else. It's actually kind of nice to not be picked very high in the preseason polls. It takes a lot of the pressure off us and makes us less of a target for other teams. But it also tells us that we have a lot of work to do, and we can't be complacent if we want to regain our status at the top of the polls. I think everyone is very positive about where this team could go this year. Fatigue is starting to take a toll on everyone. We're still trying to work hard, but it's evident on the film that people just aren't moving as fast as before, and more mental mistakes are occurring. Coach Solich told us that no progress was made in tonight's practice due to all the mistakes. That's kind of insulting, but it is the truth and needs to be said. Coach Solich really has taken full control of the team in every aspect of the practices. He's personally involved with virtually every group and freely gives constructive criticism. I see him as a much more confident authority figure this year compared to previous years. His speeches have gotten better by focusing on the positives while putting a positive twist on negative points. Also, he now has a team that's entirely his. Besides the sixth-year seniors, everyone on the team has only had him as a coach, and he no longer has to try to be better than Dr. Tom Osborne. He can just be himself. We found out tonight that we will each get an Xbox for the BCA game, the Black Coaches Association game. That's a nice gift, but I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it. Today, we also picked up our new t-shirt with this year's motto on it, Start Strong, Finish Stronger. I guess now is as good a time as any to mention that in the years following my time on the team, the NCAA put a rule into effect that changed the structure of two-a-day practices, and it made it so the coaches had to have a single practice on days in between two-a-days. So on Monday you could have 2 practices that single day, but on Tuesday you had to have just 1 practice. And then Wednesday you could have 2 practices again, but on Thursday you had a single practice, and so on. From the guys that I talked to who overlapped these years, they said that the new format for practicing during the fall like that was so much better. They had so much more energy, and everything was so much more productive because of it. So I think that's a good rule that NCAA made finally. Also, I just want to mention that as soon as the book came out, a lot of media were talking about how this was a very negative portrayal of Coach Solich and his years with Nebraska as a head coach. And if you go back and listen again to what I just said, or read through this section again for Thursday, August 8th, 2002, I'm very complimentary to him. I talk about the way he's taken over the control of the team here, and the increased confidence he has, and how his speeches are getting better and everything else. And so I think anybody who characterizes this book as bashing Solich, they don't really know what they're talking about. Because this is so late in the book, if I had the intention of making him look bad, why would I put something that's good in there this late? So, there you go. Take it for what it's worth. Friday, August 9th, 2002. This morning's practice was a lot better for me. I had a hard time making a good block yesterday because my legs were just dead, but today I was moving around well and making some pretty good plays. This afternoon's practice was another special teams practice. I took a lot of the punts, but so far it appears that John Garrison will be the main punt snapper this year. The coaches haven't said anything to the contrary, and they know he can do his job. I was the only snapper for field goals, however, so this seems to be something that I will do this year, finally. All of my snaps were great, and Joe Chrisman told me that he hardly ever has to spin the ball, and they are always right where he wants them. Josh Brown, our place kicker, is really positive about my snapping as well, and I think he has put in a few good words for me to Coach Young. All I want is to earn my letter this year, and this will be the best way to do it. Monday, August 12th, 2002. After our first full day off, this morning's practice was a lot less active than usual. I think everyone is still remembering all the fun they had doing nothing for the entire day. We didn't get a lot accomplished, but it was still a fairly good practice overall. During the afternoon session, we finally implemented some of the Arizona State stuff. They run a defense similar to ours, so we don't have to change too much, but they do some things a little differently with the linebackers that we'll have to adjust to. Also, just to make it a full 5 years in a row, I ran a few of the scout team plays against the defense at the end of the teamwork session. I mentioned to Matt Shook, who is now a student assistant coach, that my motto should be relentless to mediocrity, a spin-off of the previous motto, relentless to victory. Another spin-off, suitable for the many guys who have been on the disabled list for so long, like Brian Nelson, Tim Green, and Chris Lose, would be relentless to injury. A couple of us plan to make up t-shirts that say this for these guys, but so far, no one has taken any initiative. We received another $70 at dinner. Tuesday, August 13th, 2002. This morning's practice left a lot to be desired. There were a lot of mental mistakes all over the field. Tempers were very short today as well, and it's probably because two-a-days are close to being over. At one point during the one-on-ones, center John Garrison and nose guard John Clanton had what amounted to a face mask grabbing contest. Rush end Chris Kelsey jumped in on Clanton's side and yelled at Garrison, trying to provoke a fight. Garrison stood there on the defensive, holding a guy with each arm until Coach Solich ran in, as did others, to break it up. Coach Solich is so much shorter than Kelsey that it took Solich 3 tries to grab him by the shoulder pads and pull him away from the potential fight. Once Coach got Kelsey off, he grabbed him by the face mask and calmed him down. No one got in trouble for this, but it started the downward slide for the day. At afternoon meetings, Coach Solich told us how terrible today was and how much a waste of time he thought it was. The afternoon practice was supposed to be just a special teams practice, but Coach decided to make up for the lost work by putting in a 13-play session. He also threatened to extend the number of two-a-days if tomorrow doesn't get better. He said he doesn't want to go into the game feeling like we haven't done enough work, so we will work until he's confident in our abilities. I think part of the problem might be that we're all tired. Mental mistakes wouldn't happen if we only had one practice a day. That's just my opinion. Wednesday, August 14th, 2002. This morning's practice was the one to decide whether we would have two-a-days tomorrow or not. We started off slow, and it really didn't pick up. After the full-team skeleton session, Coach Solich told us, "I don't know what you guys thought of that station, but from the sidelines, that was the worst display I've ever seen. You didn't have one good pass play out there. That was a poor-ass display. If you play like that, you won't even beat an average team. You better pick it up right now and start making plays. You need to finish everything off and get to places on the field." After that little lecture, we practiced better right away. All of us know he means business when he comes that close to cursing. We immediately started to work harder and quickly turned the pace of practice around. By the end, we thought we did pretty well, but we weren't sure if it was good enough to keep tomorrow just at one practice. Coach Solich started off the afternoon meeting saying, "We'll practice tomorrow morning at the same time, and then we'll have you come back." At this point, everyone held their breath. "For meetings at 2:30 to go over the practice film. We won't have any type of official practice tomorrow, but if your position coach wants you to run something on the field, you might do that." We know Coach Seneper respects our desire to not run, so we're pretty much guaranteed to just have meetings and go home. That sounds pretty good to me. The afternoon practice was used to implement more of the Arizona State offense and defense. I ran with the number 2s. I really wonder if I will see much action at center this year. I'm locked in the 3rd spot on the depth chart, so I probably won't see the field unless we're blowing someone out. I know all the plays and what I'm supposed to do, but a lot of times I just can't physically do it. I'll admit that I've been outmatched in strength and speed by a lot of guys, but I've also had times where I did pretty well against them. But overall, it hasn't been enough to put me in a spot to get a lot of attention. After practice, we had to run 2 gassers just to rub in the fact that our legs are tired, and then it was done. Two-a-days are officially over. Thursday, August 15th, 2002. We had practice in half pads this morning at 7:30. Even though it's the only practice of the day, we're practicing this early because some of the guys are still in classes. The practice went well, and we implemented a lot more of the Arizona State stuff. I worked with the scout team all day, alternating with Kurt Mann. After meetings, I picked up the boy I mentor and took him to, what else, football practice. So, instead of going through practice myself, I watched a bunch of 12-year-olds running around trying to learn some of the fundamentals of the game. It's really a change to go from a level like the Huskers to that level, but I was able to pick out the kids who had a lot of heart and the kids who knew what they were doing out there. Lane is the age I was when I started playing football, and I'm sure I looked just as helpless as a lot of his teammates. Lane was actually a standout in the practice. He gave it all he had on every drill and chased every loose ball he saw. If there was a Mr. Hustle award, he should get it. Friday, August 16th, 2002. We had our last scrimmage of fall camp today, which is also the last scrimmage I will ever participate in. We had an interesting start when it began to rain very hard during warm-up, and lightning hit no less than a mile away from the stadium. We were quickly led inside to avoid being hit with lightning, which is a good thing considering we're wearing nothing but metal and plastic. We waited about a half an hour for the storm to pass, then did another quick warm-up, and then the scrimmage got underway. The scrimmage was set up differently from those of the past. The coaches wanted to get the first and second string a lot of action today, so everyone below those guys really didn't do much. There was one session each of one-on-ones and two-on-twos for 21 plays each. Then the offense ran against the scout team running Arizona State's defense, and then vice versa. I alternated again with Kurt Mann at center when we ran the Arizona State scout team against our defense. We did all right, but it's hard to judge how we did on scout team since we run off what a play diagram says to do. We don't have rules to follow on certain blocking assignments, so when something happens that isn't on the card, it's difficult to figure out what exactly you're supposed to do to solve the problem. The only major setback today was when Jason Lohr went down with what appears to be another injury. He had just come back from a previous knee injury and was looking very promising on the defensive line, and we were all very eager to see what he could do out there. He was wearing a knee brace, as we all do now, but he planted his leg a certain way, and Nick Pavendo, our tackle, said he heard a loud pop as Jason went down. This is a terrible loss because Jason is such a great guy, but we have so many other good defensive linemen that this shouldn't be a big setback for us as a team. At lunch today, we received another $90. Saturday, August 17th, 2002. At our morning practice, it appears that the old tradition of paying rent has not completely died. Back in the locker room, the guys newer to the south locker were called out and made to either lay on the N in the middle of the carpet or else be pinned down on the N while everyone else beat them. Someone had a plastic wiffle bat wrapped in athletic tape, others used big trash cans, others dumped water and Gatorade on the guys, and others just added a few kicks and slaps. If the guys fought back or resisted, everyone was more ferocious in their attack, so the best thing to do was to just go out in the middle, curl up in a fetal position, and take it. Luckily for us, Coach Solich didn't come in during all the fun. Nobody advertised this session of rent, so we not only completely surprised the players, but the coaches as well. The gates opened at 1 o'clock, and a couple of thousand fans poured into the stadium for Fan Day. The weather was on our side and gave us a fairly cool day instead of the horrible heat in the past years. Many interesting people came by today, and it's always nice to meet the fans. It really reminds us of who we're playing for and what it means to this city and the state as a whole. Afterward, they had a large pizza for each of us as we left. I munched on this as I made my way to Omaha for the rest of the weekend, and a much-deserved rest. Monday, August 19th, 2002. The weight room is really coming together now. Nearly $500,000 in improvements have been made, including new flooring and 15 new machines called Husker Power Transformers, which are mechanized racks that raise and lower with a push of a button. These are an outstanding addition to the weight room, and we can guarantee that no other school will have this type of equipment since it was all made here in Lincoln. There's a huge new platform in the middle of the weight room now, enveloping the huge transformers. All of this work was done by the strength staff, and will really look impressive for recruits. The drink room also has a new addition, possibly the greatest addition of all, Gatorade dispensers. Just like a soda fountain, ice-cold Gatorade is ready for us whenever we want it. It took them 3 years to find a good drink for us, and they finally did it. The locker room also has a new addition. They took out 3 of the sinks and added a very big whirlpool. This might be a little excessive, but I think we'll find some use for it. Wednesday, August 21st, 2002. We picked up our Xboxes after practice today. I took mine straight to a local game store and sold it for $166. I used that, along with the other money we've gotten earlier, to buy a PlayStation 2 and a couple of games. Thursday, August 22nd, 2002. We had our typical Thursday practice today. As a nice break from routine, Coach Tenniper gave us a chance to test our skills and catch some passes from him. He gave us 1 quick button hook and 1 long pass each. Today, I served as the relay person, and at the end, I went straight out for an over-the-head catch, but I missed it. I'll be sure to get it next time. Quarterback Joe Chrisman and I have an inside joke going as we practice. We're counting down the days until January 3rd, since that's the last possible day when we'll be officially done with football, and he uses that number in the cadence. For example, today we had 134 days until we're done, and he calls out, "Set! 134! 134! Hut!" Neither of us can wait to get this over with. We know we're only here to practice and be an emergency backup for the guys ahead of us. Statistically, I should be safe. It would be amazing if both the centers ahead of me had career-ending injuries, but it would be even more amazing if Coach Tennifer didn't move somebody ahead of me in that scenario just to ensure one of his favorites gets playing time. A lot of people don't understand my frustration with football. To the rest of the state, what I'm doing every day is a dream come true. But this dream gets really old really fast when it becomes all that you do, leaving you very little time and energy to do anything else. This dream quickly turns into a nightmare when you realize all your effort will get you nowhere. I'm sure I could give myself lots of free time if I just skipped more classes and didn't worry about school, but I can't do that. And this frustration isn't just my own. I know of 2 players who vented their frustration by urinating on the N at midfield one night. I dread every day, fearing that I might go out there and get severely injured, so close to being done. I just want to finish my career with my body intact. After seeing so many major injuries right in front of my face over the past 5 years, I feel very fortunate to not have needed any surgeries, and I hope to continue the streak. It's probably a good thing that my job now is essentially to give the main centers a break now and then. I only run 1 out of every 3 or 4 plays. This ensures that I don't get worn out, and it also decreases the risk of injury. In a full contact sport, you're always going to have guys who take it a little too far and start a fight. Most of the time, it's just a result of frustration at being beaten on one-on-one during a play, but there are times when somebody is a true jackass and deserves to get the crap beat out of him. Nate Coulterman is one of those guys, although there aren't many people who are willing to get into an all-out fight with him. He knows this and he uses it to his advantage. I guess he earned a little street credit when he was in a fight early in his career and he broke his cheekbone when his own helmet was used as a club on his unprotected face. Coach Solich always has to remind him to keep his energy focused on the play and not do anything foolish that could get him in trouble. That doesn't seem to work. The coaches praise the people who are tenacious, but there is a thin line between tenacity and dangerous behavior, especially in a game where penalties for such behavior can severely hurt the team. I've got to take a break here and address this as well. This really surprised me. Of all the things that made the news about my book, the one thing that has never been mentioned is this story about the 2 players urinating on the N at midfield one night. When I made the final decision to include that part, I was sure that this was going to be one of those things that was just going to be tossed around everywhere and would get a lot of attention. But so far, really, nobody has ever even commented to me about it. Even in private, meeting people at book signings and at games and everywhere else. So that's really amazed me. Maybe it just seems too outlandish to even be true. But it is true. I didn't put anything in this book that I didn't know to be a fact, and if I knew something was a rumor, I would address it as such. So I can't explain it, but that's what happened so far. All right. Friday, August 23rd, 2002. We picked up a new T-shirt today. The group of guys who have to get locked down in the hotel tonight before the game are supposed to wear it to the team movie in an attempt to display our unity. It's just a red shirt with a stitched N on it. Nothing special, but it's another shirt to add to the collection. We had a late practice and just went through our regular half-hour walkthrough before the game. After a special teams meeting, we went to see Serving Sarah at a downtown theater. When the movie was over, there were coach buses waiting for us to take us to the hotel on East Campus. We all went straight to our rooms after briefly pausing at the snack table. 2002 season. Saturday, August 24th, 2002. Nebraska 48, Arizona State 10. There are a lot of issues when you have a game late in the day. For one, it cuts down on the time we have to go out after the game. We also have to sit around the hotel with nothing to do for a long time before the game. Some guys pass the time reading the paper, doing homework, watching TV, or playing video games. Most of us take a nap at some point, but there is a lot of downtime to fill. We got up at 9:30 for breakfast, had meetings, then went back to the rooms for a couple of hours. We had a little walkthrough in the grass outside the hotel before the pregame meal. After that, we waited around until 4:45 until it was time to leave. This game was a great way to start the season. We came out with a strong first possession that ended in a field goal, but it seemed that ASU had the momentum for the rest of the half. They put together some good drives and stopped our offense from doing anything productive. We went to the locker room up 10-3. It was still anyone's game. That all changed in the third quarter when we finally got some steam going. The defense, offense, and special teams all played magnificently, putting up touchdown after touchdown. Jamal Lord put to rest any questions about his ability to be the starting quarterback. He resembled a very limber Michael Vick in the way he shed would-be tacklers and scrambled forward for the first down. He put some moves on guys to make them miss, he made some great decisions on when to pitch the ball, and he threw some great passes. In all, I don't think anyone could say he doesn't deserve this job. Offensive tackle Rinchi Incognito finally got his trial by fire, starting as a redshirt freshman and going up against ASU's Terrell Suggs, the number 4 rush end in the nation. Suggs played a great game and showed that he has the quickness and ability to be a big-time player. He came away with 4 tackles, but he probably could have had more if Jamal hadn't been so elusive. I also got my trial today. I was a snapper for all the extra points and field goals. In the end, we made them all, and all the snaps were fine, except one after we returned a block punt, where I was still pretty excited and it went a little high. Luckily, Joe Chrisman is a good holder and was able to get it down and ready for Josh. I had one little incident during one of the drives, though. I was standing on the sideline waiting to see if we would go for the first or if we would kick a field goal, and I must have spaced off for about 5 seconds. Next thing I know, I look out on the field, and the field goal team is out there yelling for me. I rush out, give Joe a perfect snap, and Josh makes the kick. As I'm jogging off the field, Coach Solich and Coach Young are both waiting for me. Coach Young began tearing into me, saying, "Where were you? Why aren't you paying attention? You gotta keep your head in this game. You've got a great opportunity here. Don't blow it. Do you want us to get someone else to do this because we're running out of centers?" And then, without a break in his berating, Coach Young said, "Good snap." He actually looked very pleased after this. I'm not sure if it was because he was able to chew me out in front of 77,779 people and a live ESPN audience, or if he was just truly happy about the snap. I was reaffirmed later in the locker room when he came up to me and shook my hand with a big smile and said I did a good job. That right there was the nicest he's ever been to me, and it only took 5 years. The joke after this game was that I finally hit for the cycle. I've been late for lifting, running, meetings, practice, and now I've been late in a game. It's not really something to be proud of, but it holds certain bragging rights. Monday, August 26, 2002. We had our first practice today as a whole team. We have 4 new walk-on offensive linemen. They remind me of my first day. They all look like they don't know what's going on. In actuality, they really don't know what's going on because they were just thrown out there and expected to pick it up on their own. I remember this well. There was no time spent on getting the new guys up to speed on anything. I ran on the scout team with the newest guys, probably so I could show them the ropes a little bit. Given that we had a lot of new faces who didn't know what they were doing, nor were they properly conditioned, I'd say practice went pretty smoothly. 130 days and counting. Thursday, August 30th, 2002. The news of the day, which isn't public yet, is that Iback Thunder Collins apparently quit the team. From what I heard, he was caught trying to sell his tickets, and when confronted about it, he said that he quit. I don't know if this is true, or when the media will notice his absence, but it's an interesting story. I never considered him the most mentally gifted athlete on the team, but I thought he was a little smarter than that. My dad recently wrote Coach Solich a letter, thanking him for all the assistance he has shown over the years, but also trying to coerce him to play me more by stating that this journal could be used as a recruitment tool, noting how a positive senior season with lots of playing time and earning a letter would be a good end to this story. I received a copy of the letter from my dad after it had been sent to Coach Solich, and I was very embarrassed how this appeared. I talked to Coach Solich in his office today and explained my feelings about the letter. I told him that I thought it was tactless and that my father acted without my approval. I also told him that whatever happens here and whatever playing time or honors I receive, I want to earn it. I don't want it to be given to me because my dad requests it or because it would make a good story. Football is a business, and sometimes guys like me get passed over. That's life. I know I'm not going to get All-American honors or even Big 12 honors, and I'm fine with that. Even if I don't get recognized by the team, it won't be a big deal. I'm part of a group of exceptional athletes, and I'm proud to say that I'm one of them. There are thousands of guys like me in the annals of Husker history, and many more in all college sports. I'm just one of a few of those people who managed to stick it out the whole time. That either proves I'm oblivious to the fact that I've been outmatched for 5 years, or that I'm dedicated to the goal. I know the first statement to be true, but I choose to believe the latter. Here's a little hindsight section I threw in. In retrospect, I should clarify a few things. My father and Frank Solich go back a long ways to when my dad blocked for Frank when they both played on the Omaha Mustangs. This was an old team that was a semi-pro organization back in Omaha for the Continental Football League. They've kept in contact over the years, and for me to be on a team coached by Solich was quite a thrill for my dad. My dad had his football glory days as a standout lineman at Lake Forest College and was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in 1967, playing a preseason game before being cut and heading to Omaha. He would have loved for his sons to pick up where he left off, but when my brother injured his back in high school, all the athletic hopes and dreams were transferred to me. He always worked hard to give us the best opportunities in every circumstance. By sending this note to Solich, he was once again using the tools at his disposal to give one of his sons the best chance for success. I know he had all the best intentions, and I can't blame him, but at the same time, he should have consulted me about this before he sent it. On the other hand, I wonder if anything would have been different if he had never told me of the letter's existence. But that would have been really unethical. I have no idea whether Coach Solich would have seen the potential use of this book and played me more, or if he would have just seen it as another pushy parent trying to get his kid more playing time. Saturday, August 31st, 2002. Nebraska 31, Troy State 16. At the morning meetings today, Coach Solich addressed the team about Thunder Collins for the first time. He said Thunder would be held out today's game, and the coaches will continue to look into the situation. They will let us know what's going on when they know the whole story. Troy State didn't seem like a slouch last year, and this year they played even harder. Their defense nearly shut down our offense by attacking the line and getting people around blocks to make plays. Basically, our offense looked horrible, with little bursts of hope now and then, but nothing really kept it going. We only had 199 rushing yards, far from our typical 250 to 300. Troy State actually finished with 34 more offensive yards than us, but the score didn't reflect this. The biggest factor in the game was the special teams. DeJuan Gross played one of his best games ever by returning 2 punts for touchdowns and a total of 155 yards. He also had 2 interceptions. The night was all his, and he's the main reason there was such a difference in the final score. Our defense played very well tonight, pressuring the quarterback to make a lot of hurried throws, but only getting 1 sack late in the game. Troy State is definitely on the path to becoming a great team, and I hope to see more of them in the future. Monday, September 2nd, 2002. I set a new personal record for laziness today as I ran with the first-team offense. I was there to give Garrison a break now and then, which wasn't crucial since we were just going in sweats. We did a rotation where he would go in for 4 and I would take 1. By the end of practice, I only had taken 12 offensive plays. I consider that a great day. Wednesday, September 4th, 2002. For some reason, the coaches decided to make today the hardest practice of the year. For starters, it has gotten warmer each day and is probably in the 90s right now. In full pads, that doesn't make practice very nice. On top of that, we ran every station possible. One-on-ones pass pro, skeleton and option drills, 2 teamwork stations, and ended the day with one-on-ones and 2-on-2s for 10 minutes. We were all so dead by the last part that it wasn't even worth it. And then, just to rub salt in our wounds, we had to run gassers. Although, as we were walking over to the line, Coach Senefer named the guys who didn't need to run gassers, something he has never done before, and I wasn't amazed when he named all the starters. I got through my gassers, lifted quickly, and then returned to my apartment where I did nothing because I was so tired. Thursday, September 5th, 2002. In the news today, we learned that I-back Thunder Collins is under suspension because he failed to complete a pre-trial diversion program for his assault charges. This is his own fault, so I don't blame the coaches for their decision. After practice, Coach Solich said they have to follow the NCAA rules and suspend him for 4 games. Since he sat out the last game, he only has to sit out 3 more. But I'm still curious if the coaches suspended him for that first game for reasons other than his assault charges. Saturday, September 7th, 2002. Nebraska 44, Utah State 13. This game was another solid performance by us, especially in the first half. We came out strong and put up 37 points before halftime. The Aggies really played well in the second half, but by then we already knew we had the game won. For the 3rd game in a row, I took all the PAT and field goal snaps, but today wasn't perfect. After the last touchdown of the half, I was pretty hyped up and didn't get settled down before making the snap. I forgot to focus on my keys. That would be Joe Chrisman's hand and my grip on the ball. And my snap was a little low and to the left. Joe had to reach for it and couldn't get it controlled, so Josh Brown just took it and tried to run it in for 2, but it got stopped short. It's reassuring to know that my mistake didn't make it or break the game. However, the spread of the game was 32 points, and because of my bad snap, we stayed under the spread. The defense combined for 6 sacks on the day, with rush end Chris Kelsey getting 2 of them by himself. DeJuan Gross had another outstanding game with 2 interceptions. DeJuan is really making a name for himself nationally, and also was making our defense look very good against the pass. I thought I was going to get in late in the game for some offensive snaps, but Josh Sewell finished the game instead. Coach Solich was trying to run out the score a little bit, and tried to convert on 4th and long late in the game and failed. After that, I knew I wasn't getting in. I'm content with just taking the field goal snaps, but I go to practice every week to also be an offensive lineman. It would be nice if I could do that in a game once in a while. We received $90 at the pregame meal. Friday, September 13th, 2002. This week leading up to the Penn State game was pretty standard. However, today we were supposed to leave for Pennsylvania at around 1:30, but found out before practice that our plane wouldn't even take off from its current location in Florida by that time. This caused a lot of changes in our schedule, such as not being able to go to Beaver Stadium tonight, not having an evening meeting, and also not being able to go to the movie. A minor setback. After we finally landed, we all got $10 during the flight, we boarded buses and drove to Altoona. We got a good view of the stadium on the way. It looks pretty big from the outside and is a lot more modern than Memorial Stadium with metal pillars instead of cement. Earlier this week, we were issued our new warm-ups for this year. They are mostly black with broad white stripes on the side, and both the jacket and the pants have a number embroidered on them. Saturday, September 14th, 2002. Nebraska 7, Penn State 40. After sleeping in later than usual, we had a late breakfast, meetings, and the usual pregame stuff. The local newspaper is very negative about their home team, casting a lot of doubt on their ability to play hard against anyone on their schedule. It's a little odd to see the local paper be so down on its own team. We gathered for the psych of tape at around 4:30 and then headed to the buses. We had a police escort the entire way, but they didn't really help much. Most of the roads leading to Beaver Stadium are 2 lanes, and the congestion was horrible for even 3 hours before the game. There were hundreds of RVs in nearby fields, and everyone appeared to be having a fun time in this massive tailgate. It's always funny to see the opposing team's fans recognize that the bus they're looking at contains the invaders. At first, they're kind of taken back, but then they proudly display their shirt or hat or anything else with the home logo. Most of them also give the "We're number 1" finger sign, but a few of them give a different version of the same number. We pulled into the stadium and were able to walk onto the field and take it all in before it started to fill with fans. The place is huge. Both end zones have upper decks, and the south end zone has an upper deck. It looks amazing and really makes you feel small when you stand in the middle of all that massive height. We headed back to the locker room to get ready for the game, passing by a few Penn State fans who took the opportunity to say a few choice words to us. As for the game, wow. No other word better describes the night. Penn State took all the wind out of our offensive sails and pounded our defense all game long, racking up impressive stats and an equally impressive score. They controlled the ball for nearly 6 minutes more than we did, ran 13 more plays, and had 148 more total yards. Jamal threw 3 interceptions, Richie Incognito got ejected from the game for fighting and will miss the first half of the next game, and the black shirts looked just as embarrassing as our offense that routinely went 3 and out. With the stadium packed with a record 110,753 people, the sound they generated was deafening. Their chant of "We are Penn State" raised hair on the back of my neck. Their fans did a good job of holding onto their tickets and not selling out to Nebraska fans like Notre Dame did, and they played a big factor in this game. We were supposed to be the better team, but Penn State really came out fired up and never gave up. No one would have guessed the outcome would be so horrible for us, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. After the game, Coach Solich had nothing positive to say about us or the other coaches. He said we didn't play like the athletes he knows we are, and we failed to keep our composure. There were several personal fouls he noted that should have never happened. He was very disappointed in us and kept his speech short, leaving us with a very bitter taste. We showered and changed quickly, and grabbed boxed KFC dinners before boarding the bus. To add insult to embarrassment, our plane showed up 2.5 hours late. We were supposed to take off at 1 in the morning, but we didn't get off the ground until 3:30. By the time we got back to Lincoln, it was nearly 6 in the morning. In all, this was a horrible trip. One positive thing I will say is that the Penn State fans are probably closest to being on the level of Husker fans with their loyalty and class. However, many others might say that Penn State fans didn't have much class. Our cheerleaders had beer and other objects thrown at them from the student section and had to be escorted out by the police in the third quarter for their own safety. Penn State fans haven't had much to cheer about lately, so a win like this gives them a reason to be happy and revel in the win. Some said mean and derogatory things to us as we walked by, but that's pretty common. There were also many people who thanked us for coming, shook our hands, wished us good luck with the rest of the season, and genuinely offered their condolences for the loss. I went to the sideline of the section where my parents were seated along with my brother and his wife, and a few Penn State fans were there in the mix and only said nice things. As our buses passed all the fields with the tailgaters, most of them raised their drink to us and many others waved. I left with a very positive view of Penn State, their program, and their fans. Joe Paterno, the coach of Penn State, is a living legend, and I feel honored to have played on his field against his men, even though it was only for one extra point snap. Monday, September 16th, 2002. We didn't practice today, but we still had meetings. We went over our goals, and were very surprised to see that the defense only made 1 out of the 15 goals. Coach Solich said he couldn't remember a single game where the defense ranked this low. After sharing more facts to make us realize how horrible we were, we watched the game film. I fell asleep in meetings, but I know I didn't miss anything. After meetings, we went out on the field and took group, team, and individual photographs. Then, just to make sure we got some kind of workout for our off day, Coach Solich had us line up on the goal line for 100-yard strides. We did 6 of them, and everyone was okay with stopping there instead of doing the 10 that Coach earlier said we would have to do. Right after the running, Coach Solich had a meeting in the auditorium with all the seniors who went to the Penn State trip. He started off by saying how much he depends on us to set an example for the rest of the team. He talked about how much he hates to lose and how much it hurts him to lose, having to visibly hold back his emotions at this point in his speech. He asked us to offer any input or advice that might be beneficial to the team. Chris Kelsey suggested that the defense get in a huddle before each play as a way to build unity. This would give the defensive guys a chance to congratulate each other for a good play and also encourage a player who might have made a bad play. If they need to, they can go back to the no-huddle approach if the offense is going no-huddle. Chris also said he would be willing to come in on his own time to learn the defensive calls, so he would be the relay man on the field, taking the signals from the sideline and giving them to the defense. This meeting was good. A lot of ideas came out, and Coach Solich heard directly from us what we think should happen. Wednesday, September 18th, 2002. For some reason, center Josh Sewell didn't show up for practice today. He called Coach Hamper at around 2 o'clock, saying his keys were locked in his car, but he could have called his girlfriend, a taxi, or found another way to get here, but he didn't show up at all today. This meant John Garris and I had to take all the snaps at the team workstations, which was not fun in full pads and surprising heat. He'll be getting a red belly tomorrow before we make him run stairs, and John and I get the first smacks. Thursday, September 19th, 2002. It turns out that Josh locked his keys in his car at a shopping mall 10 miles from the stadium and didn't have any money to take a taxi or a bus. This seems like a valid excuse, but we still had fun giving a red belly today. Saturday, September 21st, 2002. Today, I helped out at a car wash fundraiser for a local family who has a 3-year-old boy named Keithan who has terminal cancer. I was the player liaison for the organizers of this event and got place kicker Josh Brown and cornerback DeJuan Gross to help out with the car wash. We washed and dried cars, played with the little boy and his brothers, and stood out in the corner of 25th and O Street holding signs to get people to come and help out. The turnout was tremendous, and we raised over $5,000 from donations, bake sales, and auctions. People even gave money to us right off the street. However, one completely thoughtless person noticed our sign that said, "Huskers washing cars today," and "Car wash fundraiser for a 3-year-old boy with cancer," and yelled, "I'd help out if you could win a game." Josh Brown yelled, "This isn't about football. It's about a little boy." Josh also threw in a couple of colorful words and probably would have pulled the bastard out of his car if the light hadn't turned green. It's incredible how some people could be so careless and inconsiderate. This fundraiser really gave me a lot to think about. This boy only has about 6 months to live. His family and friends don't expect him to see Christmas this year. This is incredibly sad, especially when you see this little boy who is so young and beautiful and surrounded by people who love him. I can't wait for these next 3 months to pass, while these next 3 months might be the last that he is alive. While I'm wishing this time will pass quickly, his parents wish it could slow down. This really affected me and helped me put things into perspective. My life could be a lot worse. I'm waiting these 3 months to go by so I can start my life, while another might not even have a life in 3 months due to brain cancer. Life is too short to do something you hate for too long. Wednesday, September 25th, 2002. Apparently, I'm the only one who got a positive impression from our trip to Penn State. The media has been referring to the horrible behavior of the Penn State fans for this past week, and many people sent letters to the Penn State president, which prompted him to publish an apology in our newspapers. It was very well written, and I think it will do a lot to heal any wounds between these two programs. I've been asking the coaches if I will be on the travel roster this weekend, and they still don't know. We can only take 70 guys to a conference away game, and I needed to know by today if I would be going so I could sign up my tickets. I signed them up anyway, not knowing for sure. I told Josh Brown, our kicker, about my precarious position, and he immediately went to Coach Young to press him about my traveling possibility. Josh loves my snaps and is willing to go to bat for me. At the end of practice today, Josh told me that I'll be going. It's about time I was told something in a timely manner. Friday, September 27th, 2002. We had meetings at noon today, followed by our walk-through practice on the field before we packed up and headed to Iowa. We took 5 coach buses on this trip, with room enough for everyone to have a 2-seater to themselves. This trip was pretty quick, mostly because we watched the movie We Were Soldiers on the bus televisions and napped most of the way. One of the stars of We Were Soldiers is Chris Klein, a former high school teammate of mine at Millard West. We arrived at our hotel in West Des Moines, unpacked, had dinner, and left for our movie, Barbershop. I picked up my $10 for the weekend before the movie. The movie was really well done, and I think everyone enjoyed it, even the coaches. We then went back for our night snack, and had a short meeting and went to bed. Saturday, September 28th, 2002. Nebraska 14, Iowa State 36. The main difference between this loss and the Penn State loss is that Penn State embarrassed us, and at Iowa State we embarrassed ourselves. We played absolutely horribly today. It looked like we weren't even ready for this game. Penalties and fumbles put the nail in the coffin, having nearly as many penalty yards as we did rushing yards, 75 compared to 81. Usually, we continue records of excellence when we play, but tonight we set records of ineptitude. This was the largest margin of loss to Iowa State since the 1800s, and the first consecutive regular season loss since 1976, and the first conference opener loss in 28 years. It's also the first time that we will be off the AP poll since 1981. There were some highlights, however. Chris Kelsey had a solid game, getting 7 tackles, 2 hurries, and putting lots of pressure on Seneca Wallace. He also allowed Patrick Obongo to get in and finish Chris's pressure off and get a team-high 15 tackles. In all, the defense played much better than they have in previous losses, but not well enough to stop a juiced-up Iowa State offense. The special teams played extremely well tonight, too. Josh Davis had 2 amazing returns on kickoffs, but both of them were nullified by penalties. Our punt return team blocked one of their kicks deep in Iowa State territory that set up one of our touchdowns. Kyle Larson had a 47-yard punting average, and Josh Brown showed consistent leg strength by knocking all 3 of his kickoffs out of the end zone and making both extra points with ease. Special teams is the only thing we're doing right this year so far. Our offense was pathetic. We had just 16 rushing yards in the first half. The only scores we had came off a 90-yard pass from Lord to Ross Pilkington and that blocked punt that set up a short run by Judd Davies. The 90-yard pass looked like a fluke compared to the rest of the statistics, but it was actually the best play called all night. We finally called the right play at the right time, and it worked. Without those two plays, we could have easily been shut out. Luckily enough for me, those scores meant I got to snap the extra points, the only playing time I had all night. My job was done perfectly, and that's all I can be thankful for. I don't even remember what was said during halftime, or after the game. We were all in such a state of disbelief that I don't think anybody heard. I just remember that Coach Solich had the same expression, but with a little more panic in his eyes, since his job and his livelihood depend on his performance. If our fans haven't been questioning us after last year or after last week's Penn State game, they sure are now. Our own fans are cursing us, blaming the coaches, calling for firings and cuttings, and demanding sweeping changes. They aren't too far off. If I was to point to one main thing that must be changed, it's that our offensive coordinator, Coach Solich, is on the sideline and not up in the skybox as he was for Coach Osborne when he was the offensive coordinator. This is a huge handicap, and I think the pressure will be on him to do something about this. Coach Bull, the defensive coordinator, should be safe for now after the defense played a better game, but he's not hanging on by much. Coach Gill or Coach Brown are rumored as the possible next head coach or offensive coordinator. This might be a good solution, but we need to look at the big picture. Our coaches have a combined number of years that make us look like we know what we're doing, but perhaps this ancient staff is now too slow to keep up with the changes in college football all over the country. We've been doing the same thing for over 30 years, and teams are finally stopping us with ease. There are no surprises anymore. When we get behind, the average fan can guess what play we will run next and be right a high percentage of the time. Another factor is that our coaching staff doesn't motivate well. They just expect things to be done. They expect the players to provide the leadership. After Wistrom and Peter left, there was a huge leadership vacuum, and no one even knew how to take control because no one else was allowed to have any say when these most dominating black shirts were in power. The coaches also don't have the charisma that coaches of more successful programs have, which turns out to be a big factor in recruiting. The top recruits go to the teams with the most charismatic coaches. Coach Solich is a great guy, but he's not exactly someone I would want to hang out with on a regular basis. Another huge outside factor is that we are finally seeing the results of NCAA rule changes, such as the 85 scholarship limit and the restrictions on what can be done for players. This has leveled the playing field drastically across the country and has allowed many teams to gain some national power, while other teams, like us, slowly slip as the NCAA loosens our grip on domination. The best teams in the future will be the ones with the best fans, donors, and largest stadiums and best locations. Notre Dame, Penn State, and Nebraska all have big stadiums and loyal, deep-pocketed fans, but our locations leave a lot to be desired. Each of those three are in small towns in the middle of nowhere, and they're all about an hour away from the nearest major big city. Miami will probably stay on top for a while, until they set up a schedule where they actually play someone decent. They might be able to win a national championship, but I doubt they could run the table for a Big 12 championship. Monday, September 30th, 2002. A lot of changes have taken place. Quarterback Jamal Lord has been bumped down to third string, with Mike Stuntz starting and Kurt Dukes in second. Cornerback Fabian Washington will start where Pat Ricketts was, and Rover Laney Hopkins will start in front of Aaron Turpinning. Robin Miller and Rodney Burgess quit today, and I'm sure others are pondering that move as well. The coaches have placed some of the blame for the recent losses on the scout team, which could be true, but it sounds like they're looking for a scapegoat. They're saying that we aren't giving the top group of guys a good picture of what to expect, and that we need to work harder and play better. It's hard enough to find the motivation each day to face being on the scout team, but now we're being blamed for a loss. There is no glory in being a scout teamer. We run different offenses every week because we are simulating what our next opponent will be seen doing. We are forced to run plays that are diagrammed on a piece of paper with no clue about the strategy or the specific techniques that these players are using. Most of the scout team guys are overmatched by the first team guys, so rather than risk injury with an all-out effort, many guys choose to play in survival mode. A lot of them are guys who know that they don't have much of a chance of being a starter, but they're hanging around to get all the benefits, and maybe someday they'll get a few plays here and there. And with so many guys on the depth chart ahead of them, they're very well insulated from any chance of another person's injury catapulting them into playing time, so they can remain inconspicuous for as long as they want. Whenever we do get a guy who really shines and does well with lots of great effort, He's promoted off the scout team, and the guys left behind return to mediocrity. However, those promotions happen so rarely that they offer no inspiration. We went in half pads today, which is something that never happens after a game. The practice was shortened, but at the end we ran two of the top units against the third-team guys. I was running on the third-team offense, running scout team plays against the first and second-team defense. In all, it was a pretty intense practice. A lot of the focus in group work was on basic fundamentals, apparently in an attempt to fix the foundation before trying to continue to build. All of the media is bashing us. They're bringing out all these statistics about how horrible we are compared to the past Husker teams. All the facts they're presenting are true, but what they don't show is that while we've always been at or near the top, other teams are starting to catch up and pass us over. I think it's not necessarily that we've gotten worse, other teams have just gotten better. Tuesday, October 1st, 2002. The weathermen were right today. There was rain in the forecast, and it started to rain lightly about midway through practice. It got steadily stronger up until about 15 minutes before the end of practice, when the clouds ripped open and poured out everything they had. The wind and the downpour off the South Stadium bleachers combined to look like huge waves crashing down the rows of seats. With thunder rumbling and rain so thick it was hard to see, we got inside quickly, and Coach Solich conceded to Mother Nature and called practice off a few minutes early. Wednesday, October 2nd, 2002. Today started off well. We were in full pads in the Cook Pavilion since it was still very wet outside, and I was doing my usual thing of staying at the run station all day long and giving Josh and John breaks every few plays. Near the end of the first station, someone rolled into the side of my leg, and I felt my ankle twist. It didn't hurt initially, but I got up gingerly and hobbled back to the huddle. Then it started to hurt, and I couldn't press off my left foot at all. Doak Ostergaard, the head trainer, showed no sympathy for me and told me just to walk around and get back into practice as soon as possible. Sorry, Doak, but I don't trust your judgment when all you do is watch me walk around. He could have at least checked out my ankle right then, but didn't seem to want to take the initiative. This could be another sign of how, when you're not an important contributor to the team, they don't care about your well-being as much. But I might be looking into this too deeply. Anyway, I sat out the rest of the practice and did the best I could at lifting. When I got to the locker room, I found that a practical joker had filled my turf shoes, which were sitting in my locker, with water. The water spilled into the bottom part of my locker, getting most of my clothes wet. Then, when I was in the shower, someone took my backpack and hid it around the corner in Kyle Ringenberg's locker, and also tossed my grass shoes in the same aisle. I don't know who did it, but I'm pretty sure it was Richie Incognito. He and Garrison were in the locker room before most of the guys, and Richie was holding a large water cooler bottle when I walked in. He wouldn't take any credit for it, I didn't expect him to, and John failed in his role as a team leader and captain by letting this stupid shit happen. As I left the locker room, I was pretty pissed off, and I spread Richie's shoes all over the entire locker room so he'll have something to do tomorrow. There is a potential hurricane brewing in the south, and McNeese State has opted not to wait around for the weather to clear before making the trip. They flew to Lincoln today and will practice at our facilities. It's been organized so the teams won't come into contact with one another until Saturday. We recently received our new sweatsuit. It's all gray and simply says Nebraska football on it. We also received a long-sleeve black Under Armour shirt and black tights, both of which are valued at $45 or more in stores. Thursday, October 3rd, 2002. Apparently, Richie didn't notice that I threw all of his shoes around because he never got mad. He taped up Josh Schul's lock on his locker, though, so maybe he did notice and blamed Josh for it. I passed on a note about the whole thing to Coach Solich, but I left out my little retaliation. Coach Solich must have talked to Richie and John, because in the huddle, Richie claimed that Chris Kelsey said the coaches said that pranks need to stop. Dan Waldrop later told me that Chris never said anything to Richie, so Richie was just trying to cover himself and make it sound like Chris, who has more power on the team, was enforcing the rules. I guess Richie doesn't like to be held accountable for his actions. Friday, October 4th, 2002. Today after practice, Junior Tagawai threw a handful of liquid soap in Richie's face. Some of the soap got in his eyes and was apparently very painful and hard to wash out. After Junior left the locker room, Richie squirted liquid soap all over Junior's stuff, including in his shoes and in his helmet. Even if this retaliation was warranted, to do this the day before the game is inexcusable. Junior is going to have very little time to clean out all of his stuff before the game, and he will almost definitely get soap in his eyes when he gets his helmet on. Saturday, October 5th, 2002. Nebraska 38, McNeese State 14. Either the managers noticed the soap or Junior didn't, because nothing was said about it. We all thought there was going to be a brawl in the locker room today, but neither Richie nor Junior said anything about it. This game had a number of outstanding performances in it, such as Mark LaFour's 64-yard touchdown on a reverse, and David Horn's debut as I-back with 12 carries for 81 yards. Horn has a very smooth and patient running style. He carefully watches the blocks develop in front of him and then explodes through the hole with great acceleration. I think he'll do very well, and that's probably an understatement. It was a pretty good game all around, and we really needed it to gain some confidence as a team. McNeese State wasn't a pushover. They are ranked number 2 in their division for a very good reason. They have some good athletes, and they have a very good team as a whole. They played us hard and gave us a good game. I hope to see at the end of the season that they are national champions of their division. Once again, I took all the snaps for the extra points and the one field goal that we had, all of them being good, continuing a solid performance for the year. Monday, October 7th, 2002. Once again, we're going in half pads on Monday. All of us are beginning to wonder how long this will keep up. We know we need to be a little more physical in practice, so it will carry over into games, but going in half pads is just like going in full pads, and doesn't too much to give us any time to recover. My ankle is still very sore and is hampering my playing and running. It doesn't matter too much, because I don't have too many plays to practice, but it's still hard for me to do a good job. It's discouraging not to contribute at the level I can, especially since that level wasn't very high to begin with. Wednesday, October 9th, 2002. Rush end Chris Kelsey hurt his hamstring in the last game, and looks like he won't play in this week's game. This could be bad, since Missouri's quarterback, Brad Smith, has made a name for himself as a very potent weapon for the Missouri offense. He looked very impressive as he led his offense through an amazing romp of the Oklahoma defense, but was still unable to get the victory. David Horn's performance in the last game has sparked some controversy among the I-backs. The other I-backs have been quoted in the paper sounding jealous of his playing time and the yards he's racked up. If they have a problem with it, they need to reevaluate themselves and see where they really are. If they think they should be playing above him, they need to prove it with actions, not words. We have a very talented group of I-backs right now, and they're all playing very well, which poses problems when you try to divvy out playing time. The stars won't get the stats they desire, and the other guys might not get any playing time at all. At the same time, if they have a good cohesion, they will inspire each other to work harder and keep getting better, instead of working to undermine each other. I hope they get it together. Saturday, October 12th, 2002. Nebraska 24, Missouri 13. After a slow start, our defense really got it going and put on an impressive show. They really played out of their minds and simply looked amazing. The Missouri offense was slowed down to 220 yards and just 13 points. What's even more amazing is that we were able to fight back from being down and come away with a solid win. Missouri scored first, and they were up 13-7 near the end of the half. We scored with 43 seconds left in the half and added an extra point to make it 14-13. When we came out of the second half, we still played well, but the offense just couldn't get the job done, so we turned it over to special teams. DeJuan Gross proved for the third time this season that he's the best punt returner in the country by taking a punt back for 89 yards and a touchdown. Josh Brown later added 3 points with a field goal, and that gave us the final score. We could have had one more, but he missed a 35-yarder late in the game. It was from the left hash, and he said earlier in the week that he doesn't like kicking from that hash. On the other hand, Kyle Larson had a very tough day punting. He averaged only 27.2 yards on 6 punts, and looked like he was really struggling. I later learned that there was a very personal reason for this. His mother has been battling cancer for a while and just went under surgery to remove the tumor. I'm sure his mind wasn't focused entirely on the game, and I don't think anyone can blame him. This was another good win for us. It improved our confidence even more, and we proved that we have what it takes to overcome a deficit. We're not strangers to being down now, and we now know that we can come back and win. This could be the turning point in the season. Once again, I took all the extra point snaps and the field goal snaps. Friday, October 18th, 2002. This was an interesting week. On Monday, we learned that starting quarterback Jamal Lord was taken to detox Saturday night after being charged with disturbing the peace. We don't know the whole story, but from what we were able to piece together Monday night in the Unity Council meeting, it appears that Jamal didn't do anything wrong. He just went outside to see what was going on, and the cops took him downtown. This became big news very quickly, especially after having a good game against Missouri earlier in the day. We discussed what should happen to Jamal in accordance with our point system, and we decided that since we didn't have enough information, especially from the official police reports, we shouldn't do anything yet. Coach Solich was at our meeting and agreed with our decision. It turned out later in the week that Jamal would be allowed to start the game. Another weekend occurrence that didn't make the papers was that offensive guard Jake Anderson drove home after drinking quite a bit and got into an accident south of downtown. The cops showed up and gave him a DUI, making his case a little more serious. The media still hasn't heard about this, but he won't go to the game this weekend and will have to go through pretrial diversion to get this erased. Also, after the Missouri game, Thunder Collins mentioned to a few guys that he was going to quit because he was discouraged about his lack of playing time. No one believed him because he's always complaining about something, and not too many people care about what he says anyways. Well, he turned out to be a man of his word, and he didn't show up at all for the week of practice or classes. Near the end of the week, there was a statement printed in the paper saying he's quitting the team because his scholarship check was cut in half, and he just can't support himself and his brother on $200 a month. It was a well-written statement, which makes me doubt that he actually wrote it, but there were quite a few sympathetic souls who replied to the Omaha World Herald's website. No one on the team really cared. We have replacements. Go have fun, Thunder. On top of all this, offensive linemen took a drug test, and we were also given flu shots. Everyone passed the drug test as far as I know. The NCAA recently made a new rule that certain chemicals in Red Bull, a popular energy drink, is now illegal. This shouldn't have much of an effect on us, but it's an inconvenience for some. We were issued a new pair of shoes and our winter jackets on Wednesday. The shoes are pretty nice, for the guys who have feet under size 16. The shoes that I got are still pretty nice, however. They're mid-top, black and whites, a classic Adidas design, and are really shiny. The jacket is a big, puffy black coat, exactly like the one we were issued last year, or 2 years ago, I forget which. Now I have 2 identical coats hanging in my closet. Here's a classic Coach Young story for you. Today during practice, Coach Young was rounding up guys for the kickoff team. I backed Deontay Grigsby, who's usually on this team, but he was injured earlier. Oblivious to this fact, Coach Young yelled out, "Deontay!" while looking around on the sideline for him. Someone nearby informed Coach that Deontay was hurt and not practicing. Coach Young, after being told this, looked around again as if to yell for someone else, and yelled out, "Grigsby!" His senility keeps getting funnier. My old teammate, friend, and mentor, and all-around great guy, Jim Tansey, is in town for a while. He's staying with me, and we're living life to extremes. Every night is a new adventure, and my sleep and homework schedule have begun to suffer, but I don't care. Jimmy was such a help for me that I will do anything for him at any time. True friends are hard to come by, and to have someone who will always be there for you is special, and I really appreciate Jimmy for this.